Good morning, everyone. My name is Rick Wayman. I'm the Director of Programs at the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. We're based in Santa Barbara. I have the privilege of working with David Krieger, who you just heard from, as well as Jimmy Hara, who's on our board of directors, and Paul Chappell, who you will meet later today. And I'm also actually on the board of directors of another group called the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability, which is a national group of mostly local groups located around the nuclear weapons complex. Mary Leah's group, Tri-Valley Cares, is one of those groups. So I also have the pleasure of working with her on a regular basis. So I wanted to start this morning by thanking Josie and all the volunteers who put this event together today. I know it takes a lot of hard work to put any event together, and I'm very thankful for your efforts in promoting nuclear disarmament here on the SoCA campus and in the larger world. It's very important to be involved in this issue for the students here. I really commend you for being aware of this and taking time out of your lives to pay attention and try to make a difference. Some of you might be surprised to know that public opinion polls in the US show that about 1/3 of US citizens don't know that Hiroshima was the place where nuclear weapons were first used. For those 18 to 29 years old, 40% don't know that. So there's a real lack of knowledge, even about kind of simple, basic history. And as you all know, if we don't learn from history, problems tend to reoccur. So education is a big goal. Wanted to start out with a question for you all. I know this is a very international campus. I'm wondering how many of you grew up here in the US? Okay, so probably about roughly half the people here. So I grew up in Ohio, and definitely in high school and college, definitely got what I would call the victor's version of World War II. I was taught to look at nuclear weapons from above, the mushroom cloud. There are many other people, including, for sure, the Hibakusha, the survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, who look at nuclear weapons from down below. That would be the destruction, the environmental destruction, the human destruction that they cause. And I think it's very important to take that perspective into account. So I was asked this morning to talk about the history of nuclear weapons and the decision to drop the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Just before I do that, I want to recommend this paper, which there are copies out on the sign-in table. We just published it a few weeks ago for the 50th anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it details how close we came in 1962 to using nuclear weapons again, and how we're actually still engaging in very risky behavior today, 50 years after the Cuban Missile Crisis. I want to start by recognizing Professor Peter Kuznick. He's a historian at American University in Washington, D.C. He's also an associate of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. He's done a great deal of research on these issues, and in my presentation today, I'm drawing deeply on a paper that he wrote in 2007 called The Decision to Risk the Future: Harry Truman, the Atomic Bomb, and the Apocalyptic Narrative. So what have some of you heard about why the US needed to drop the bombs on Japan in 1945? To end World War II as soon as possible. Yeah?
To scare Russia.
To scare Russia, okay, good.
To try atomic bomb because they developed two types of atomic bombs, so they want to try it.
Okay, yeah, so experimenting the two different types of bombs that they had developed. Anyone else?
To save American lives.
To save American lives, okay, good.
For the power revenge.
Okay, yeah, revenge for Pearl Harbor, yeah. All reasons that, that we hear regularly, both in history textbooks, on the news, in the newspaper, in Congress. So President Harry Truman is the one who ultimately made the decision to drop the bombs on Japan. From what I've read, he was kind of confused, but always really wanted to justify what he did. Here are some quotes from him. Nuclear weapons are the greatest thing in history. I never lost any sleep over that decision. It was a terrible decision, but I made it. These weapons could lead to the fire destruction prophesied in the Euphrates Valley era after Noah and his fabulous ark. So kind of drawing on apocalyptic biblical words. He also said, this is the greatest thing in history. When he was asked in 1958 if he had any regrets, not the slightest in the world. So, you know, we've heard from him, a lot of the American servicemen who were directly involved in dropping the bombs, maybe flying on the planes that actually dropped the bombs. And as one of our guests here mentioned, one of the reasons that we hear we had to drop these bombs is it saved, you know, a lot of lives. Okay, so that number has mushroomed over the years. In 1945, the U.S. War Department said that it saved 46,000 people from dying, I guess American service members. Shortly thereafter, Secretary of War Henry Stimson said that it saved 1 million lives, preventing an American invasion of Japan. George H.W. Bush in 1991 said that it saved millions of American lives. A crew member of the plane that dropped the bomb on Nagasaki in 1995 said that it saved 6 million people, 1 million Americans and 5 million Japanese. So, you know, it's hard to say, you know, you can't rewrite history, luckily, in terms of, you know, going back and seeing if that many people would have died, but it's inconsistent, and really, to me, it's irrelevant how many people would have died because of what they knew beforehand, and actually what they thought it might do. So there were a number of military officers who, after the bombs were dropped, expressed their opposition to having made that decision. In fact, 6 out of 7 wartime 5-star officers. A couple, I think, really good quotes that you probably won't hear very often. Admiral William Leahy, who was the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the time, the use of this barbarous weapon at Hiroshima and Nagasaki was of no material assistance in our war against Japan. In being the first to use it, we adopted an ethical standard common to barbarians of the Dark Ages. Wars cannot be won by destroying women and children. Secretary of War Henry Stimson, in this last great action of the Second World War, we were given final proof that war is death. War in the 20th century has grown steadily more barbarous, more destructive, more debased in all its aspects. Now, with the release of atomic energy, man's ability to destroy himself is very nearly complete. And Winston Churchill, in a private conversation with President Harry Truman, said, "Mr. President, I hope you have your answer ready for that hour when you and I stand before St. Peter and he says, I understand you two are responsible for putting off those atomic bombs. What have you got to say for yourselves?" So, to me, you know, those are kind of surprising quotes, not things you hear too often in the mainstream media or in kind of the mainstream education system. But what's more surprising to me than post-war expressions of opposition to that